Welcome back to another Confessions of a Recruiter episode. We are joined by the kings of outsourcing. So you've got one onshore recruiter. They're supported by two remote professionals. Like, what does that structure look like?
Our revenue targets that we aim to get our consultants to is making 50,000 in 4 weeks.
One question we get a lot at Confessions is, how do we scale our agency? How do we get more time back? How do we make more money? And today we've got the answers. So welcome, Jonny, Sam, and Jory. Thanks for joining us. I think we should start with giving everyone a little bit of context on why this episode exists. And I alluded to that in the intro, but one common problem that we see with recruiters is they've got to do so much to get a deal over the line. Outsourcing and finding remote professionals has always been a keen interest for many recruiters looking to try and scale their agency without scaling overheads and scaling costs. However, the challenge that many have is being able to do that consistently time and time again. And to be fair, I know a lot of recruitment agency owners that have been burnt with it. Possibly it's the remote person that's coming into the business. Possibly it's the way that they're managing them. There's so many different elements that could derail this process. So I think hearing from Sam and Jory around how they've been able to scale their agency to ultimately becoming one of Australia's fastest growing companies, and that'll come out in November. So fingers crossed, boys. I think it'd be really nice to get a bit of a download on that and then tie in how Jonny fits into this picture and what he's been able to do. Let's just kind of start with a 2 or 3 minute high level overview on the structure of H People and where you've came from and where you are today.
I guess, Jory and I have been working together for probably about the last 4 or 5 years now. And we've essentially been working with remote professionals in our day-to-day lives during that entire period. H People came around about 2.5 years ago. We'd been working with a number of remote professionals before we'd started H People. Some had sort of left during that time and mentioned to us that if we ever, started our own business or went out anywhere else, they'd really love to join us on our journey. So when we started H People 2.5 years ago, Celeste, the OG, we let her know, and she literally joined us on the journey. So we've pretty much been working hand in hand with remote professionals since day one. So Cell started with us at the beginning, and essentially what it allowed Jory and I to do was just really double down on business development to bring in more revenue into the business. So the way that we work with the remote professionals is more so in sort of a partnership than looking at outsourcing certain tasks, which is sort of, I guess, how we've cracked the code.
The first sort of 6 months of H People, when we had just myself and Sam, and then we had Sel, Josh, and then Christina, we saw...
Just to clarify, sorry to jump in there. So you and Sam, and then you had 3 remote professionals.
Correct, yes, yeah.
Okay, cool. Yep.
Yeah, so there was 5 of us in the business, and that gave Sam and I the time to spend time doing business development, relationship building, while Josh, Christina, and Sel would be doing all of the resourcing and back-end support for us to get the delivery piece done right. So 6 months into the business, obviously going pretty well, and then we saw an opportunity that each time that we would hire our own internal staff member on Australia, that it would be important and imperative for our business and our growth to support them with their own remote professional. So each time that we would bring someone on, they would also get a remote professional work in alongside with them to help essentially double their output. So we brought on two onshore consultants in the February. We brought on another 2 remote professionals. Then we did the same thing in June. 2 and 2, and then October we brought in some more as well. So bringing our structure up to, I think our highest was about 20 staff members, but half of that has always been based out in the Philippines. And time and time again, it's just been the case that all of our consultants have had the opportunity to double their output and bring in and maximize their revenue because they've got the support and the partnership from the remote professional that helps with the sourcing, the admin, the compliance, so they can focus on those high value generating, revenue generating activities.
So what are the outcomes that you've achieved in H People through remote professionals? Like, where are you at today?
Harry would be a good example, I would say. Harry joined our team at the end of last year. And we always train up a remote professional before we hire an onshore staff member now, so that the the onshore staff member can really spend the majority of their time. And Harry started a brand new division for us in a new location where nobody knew who H People was, which if anyone that's listening has started a cold desk from scratch in a new area before, you know the graft. And what Harry and his remote professionals, managed to do within a 6-month period was essentially get their weekly margins up. What was his peak? 8,800 recently?
So he's done
a week.
8.5 in a week. So Harry's on track to do between 4 and 5, 100K in his first year of recruitment.
Yeah.
Completely green to the industry because of the support that he's had with Sel and now Josh in his team.
Now running one of our biggest clients, he's plugged 10 candidates into a business within 2 weeks, and there's scope to get 50 into one business, which we'll continue to support Harry by training up another remote professional to support him so that he can manage that client relationship and ensure that the service that we provide. Because what we see is as people get busier and as consultants' desks grow and the temp numbers they're running grows and the revenue grows, the service drops. And then that's where, you're at risk of losing accounts and, clients becoming unhappy. We're actually at the Pembroke Summit Awards tomorrow night for, finalists in the business services for Australia and New Zealand. And the way we've been able to maintain our reputation and service to all of our clients is by supporting our consultants with remote professionals.
So just to be super clear, so you've got one onshore recruiter.
Yes.
They're supported by 1, 2 remote professionals? What does that structure look like?
We have revenue targets.
Okay.
So essentially our revenue targets that we aim to get our consultants to with one remote professional is making $50,000 in GP in 4 weeks. Once they've done that, $50,000 a month, 50,000 in 4 weeks. So once they've done 3 periods at 50,000, that's when we look at how do we support them get to the next level, which would be say 70,000 or 80,000 in 4 weeks. And we do that by giving them the option. So it's always the consultant's option, whether they would like an onshore account manager to look after some of their accounts while they continue to drive on and do more business development. Alternatively, we offer them a second remote professional so that they can essentially continue to grow, but their desk becomes heavily, as you can appreciate, more profitable, which means that they would take home a lot more commission as well.
You partner a onshore recruiter with a remote professional.
Correct.
To get them to the 50K a month mark.
50K in 4 weeks.
Once they hit that, they get a second remote professional. So what are the outcomes then for your business? What do you see is the key driver on getting these remote professionals? Is it he gets more time back? Is that ultimately what happens? Or
I think it'd probably depend on the recruiter and what their motivations and their goals are. So some people it's driven by performance and commission and how much they can earn. Some of it is about getting that time back as well, because as everyone knows, recruitment's pretty full on for at the best of times, temp recruitment especially. It's very, very fast paced. So if you can have someone to help support you to get some of your time back as well, if that's what's important, then we're totally open to that as well.
We even have remote professionals in our business that's, we run hundreds of contractors that work for us every day, which comes with its own challenges with payroll and pay queries and et cetera, et cetera. So we have a remote professional, Naomi, shout out Naomi, who, her full-time job essentially is to make sure that everyone's timesheet is submitted, approved, and everyone gets paid. We have another remote professional that looks after our social media channels via a platform called Metrical. So she pumps out, original content via, so there's so many different aspects of the business where, you can get assistance.
I love this. Okay, so that's high level. Sounds pretty good. How does Jonny fit in this picture?
You start.
Okay. So Jonny founded the Wingman Group. We've always known of Jonny and with the Wingman Group from afar because, they are by far the leaders in outsourcing, in my opinion. Jonny, you specialize in the real estate space. Do you want to give us a bit of an overview of how that came about?
Yeah, it's cool to hear how you structured your recruitment agency. So I've got a property management business I started 6 years ago. The reason I started that business was typically most real estate agencies are sales-based businesses. They got a property management arm. We say it's the ugly kid of the industry. So I started a business to go, right, how do we turn the ugly kid into the cool kid of the industry? And we really focused on PM and we didn't do sales. So we actually had the same model. Every one of our property managers had a remote professional in the Philippines who did all their back-end admin. So our property managers could double their output. If the property managers could double their output, it means we could pay them more. Our clients got a better experience and they got to do what they enjoyed. So that was really the foundation. We grew the fastest growing rent roll in the country.
Wow.
We've got 3,000 managements in that business and still running. I've got a CEO who runs that business. And similar to you boys, when about 3 years ago, when people started to ask, how are you doing this? I started talking about the Philippines and what's possible. So we started helping other real estate agencies do it. And over the last 3 years, we've grown. We've got 1,200 staff in the Philippines across about 800 businesses. And then when I met you guys, very similar story.
It was a cool story, yeah.
And an opportunity to support the recruitment industry. And it feels like the recruitment industry is about 3 years behind the real estate industry in regards to people are starting to understand it, but a lot of misconceptions. But now in the real estate industry, every big player is using remote professionals, and we're supporting a lot of those agencies. And between all of us, we want to be able to do that in the recruitment space.
Yeah, it was a pretty cool story. So obviously Sam and I have been integrating remote professionals for a number of years, and I think we'd have recruitment agencies ask us how we do it,
where we find them.
Yeah, where we find them, why we've been so successful. So we did a bit of a planning that we were going to start a secondary business. And we got along the journey of actually starting it. And it was going to be called Our People.
Remote People.
Remote People. And then ran into Jonny Roston in the gym. We go to the same gym together. And sort of like Sam might have touched on earlier, very big believers on surrounding yourselves with great people, great mentors. And asked Jonny if I could take him out for brekkie or take him for a lunch. And that's where we first got introduced to Jonny and Jono, and had a bit of a chat. And the initial conversation was to really understand how they got to where they were, what mistakes that they made, what areas that we should be looking for, what are our blind spots.
Yeah. Help us not make mistakes that you've made was essentially where we were leading with that meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. And they were so forthright with their time, completely honest, and I think we all hit it off really well, which was awesome. So obviously that sort of transpired in multiple discussions. I think Johnny's idea to sort of get involved as well, which is pretty cool.
It didn't even cross my mind. Like, I don't think I would have, approached you and said, can we, come in? So it's pretty cool that, you met us and saw in us, I guess, a little bit of yourself, when you started out. And I think the joined forces of, the beast or the machine that Wingman Group has become, partnered with what Jory and I know about how to do it in the recruitment space. I know that we're going to be able to help so many recruitment companies initially in Australia and New Zealand, and eventually globally, hopefully do what we're calling the H people way, which is changing the perception of outsourcing. In recruitment.
You put it perfectly there, which segues on to the perception. Let's talk about the perception, because I want to kind of dig into some challenges, some misconceptions, some myths, and try and uncover the reality of getting remote people in your agency for whatever reason. So I guess I'm just going to throw this out here. A common misconception that I hear is they're just not at the level they need to be. It's almost like you got to spend more time managing them than you can getting the outcomes that they're trying to deliver. I guess, how do you guys unite to overcome that?
A general misconception is that, these people are virtual assistants or VAs. And, I had a post go out, after attending the Wingman retreat, the word VA or virtual assistant will never, ever leave my lips ever again. What a lot of people try to do with outsourcing is they'll pick apart things that they don't want to do, or they think that, I'll just get somebody you can do reference checking and formatting CVs. And we're not actually going to talk to you. We're just going to send you a message on Teams twice a day and say, do this, And then obviously over time, the remote professional, isn't going to feel like they're making an impact to your business, potentially might become disengaged, as any of us would if we were working in a pointless job that had really no meaning. So I guess what where we've seen the real change is, when the remote professionals are integrated with the team on the same level as our onshore team. Like, we do not view them any differently as our onshore or offshore team. We have, morning meetings every morning. The whole team's involved. We split our business up into like micro pods where it's Australian and Filipino combined partnership. And they really, really see the difference and the impact that they're making on people's lives. Because that's what we do in recruitment. We're impacting and changing candidates' lives by finding them, hopefully, the job of their dream. And we're helping Australian businesses build their team with high-performing, local, experienced staff. And, when our remote professionals can see, Jory and I and our entire team at H People have got 400 5-star Google reviews from our candidates and clients. And the majority of them Google reviews will mention our remote professionals' names, as well as other consultants.
Let me challenge you on this.
Go.
Can a remote professional ruin the integrity of your brand a little bit? I'm just putting myself in the shoes of a recruitment agency owner that loves the idea of getting more time back in their day to do the things that they don't want to do. But one of the reservations is if my clients or candidates even knows that I've got a remote professional, or there's a little bit of an insecurity there, and could they ruin my amazing brand that everyone knows me for? So how do you overcome that?
I think the reasoning you use offshoring, so the reasoning that I've used offshore is to provide a better level of service. So if I can free in my real estate business, if I can free my property managers up to spend more time with their clients, ultimately their client, the landlords and the tenants win. So in our real estate business, we'd like to think we provide a much far superior service. Why is that? It's because our staff on the ground can spend more time with their clients and they're not doing non-dollar productive activities. So if you're in the recruitment space, not that I'm an expert, but if you're spending time doing admin and you're a recruiter, that's time that you could have been spending with the candidates or finding the perfect role for someone. So you're doing it to be able to support businesses, not to cut costs. And I think with that philosophy, why would you not rather work with a business who's got double the manpower than a business that can't spend the time doing what they should be doing?
Yeah, I guess it's like a shift in perspective. It's how you approach it. It sounds like
it's also the future.
Yeah,
it's happening and it's going to continue to happen.
Yeah.
So I think it's like you can get on board now. And you can understand that it is the future of business. And, every big business does it in every industry. Every good business does it in some aspect.
Well, you try and call Microsoft or Google, there's a remote professional that answers the phone.
Exactly.
If Google and Microsoft can get away with it, surely ABC Recruitment down in Sherwood can probably do the same thing.
Yeah. All of the big banks as well, they outsource all of their recruitment to the Philippines, and, that's where we find a lot of the remote professionals that we're placing into Australian recruitment companies.
There's an interesting way to look at it as well. There's outsourcing and there's offshoring. So outsourcing typically is when Telstra call center, they outsource their whole customer service division to India, and there's a call center that answers it. Typically that's a tough experience. We're not outsourcing, we're offshoring. So we're not actually going in and saying we're going to outsource your whole business. We're supporting your business. They become an embedded part of your business, which is offshoring. So I think where people go, they think of it as that whole department's going to go offshore. It's not. It's basically you're offshoring. You're supporting agencies and businesses provide better service.
What if, with a click of a finger, you could start your own recruitment agency? Well, now you can. With XRecruiter, launching your own agency has never been easier. In less than 3 weeks, you could be taking home 85% more of your billings with everything handled for you. You recruit, we take care of the rest. Click the link in the description to see if you are ready to take that next step. So what are you doing then to avoid the negative experiences? I know for myself, I've used some remote offshore outsource type of businesses before. I think about 18 months ago, I put an offshore remote professional that buddied up with every single one of my consultants. And to be fair, it was a little bit of a train wreck, to be totally open. And I don't know specifically why, if it was the inability to know or teach the recruiter the best way to engage and manage that offshore person, or the offshore person was no good, or there was some sort of disconnect. So you've obviously got 1,200, did you say?
Yeah.
Do you have any secret sauce on how you're able to like stop these types of situations from happening? Like what do you see?
Yeah, I mean, that's the real reason I'm so excited by this partnership as well, is that there's two key reasons offshoring doesn't work. The offshore staff member's not trained in the industry specifically, and they're not really well embedded into the business. So if you go and get a VA, that other companies call it, you just go get a random VA and say, hey, here's your job. 99% of the time it's not going to work. You need to train them in the industry. So in the real estate sector, we train them for 3 months before they go into a business. For 3 months before they go in, they learn how to manage the property better than an Australian does. Same as what we're doing in the recruitment space now. We're building a training academy. We have an onshore Australian recruitment trainer who's specifically training that person before they go into the business.
Go, Abby.
So if you're a recruiter, if you get an offshore staff member and they're fully trained, the chance of success is much higher than if they're not trained. And then the second part is you then need to teach the Australian on what to delegate and how to delegate. So you give the offshore person a trained offshore to the recruiter, but then you also help them build process, build systems, so it becomes embedded. And if you do those two things well, the success rate's highly it's going to work. But if you don't do those two things and you don't do them well, and it's why offshoring's never really worked in recruitment in the past, is because no one's really specialized in that training piece.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're forming partnerships at the moment with, the likes of JobAdder, Bullhorn, Loxo, so we can really provide a tailored training academy for every single business, essentially. So we'll run the remote professionals depending on, which CRM the client uses. We're developing different segments and different training pieces to run them through before they start.
I've never heard of that. I've used plenty of VAs, as other companies call it. And you're right. Usually it's just,
here you go.
Hey, mate, do you like them? Like, yeah, all right, I'll give them a crack, I guess.
Yeah.
And
now what?
Yeah. And you're kind of just winging it. And sometimes it feels like hard to fully commit to that level of investment to training up the remote professional, because you're still not entirely sure if they understand industry jargon, they understand the CRM. Like, there's so many little elements that just take a lot of time up to get them up to speed, which is probably why the fallover rate's so high.
Yes, 100%. And it's their recruiters are busy and they want to spend their time doing deals. So that's what we're going to take away all that noise so that they can hit the ground running and get some quick wins.
Yeah, the fact that you could have an RP join your business, be comfortable with your CRM system that you use, whether that's a Bullhorn or Loxo, a JobAdder, and they're going to be able to navigate their way around the system. They're going to know how you like your CVs formatted because they've spent time with Abby and the onshore training team. It's just going to be the integration pieces are so key. And that's what excites me as well, is seeing how the Wingman group have formed this integration. And it's such a well-oiled machine. Unreal. That it shocked me at first of how well that the system runs, and then how well that the RP can essentially hit the ground running.
The only difference with Wingman is we don't charge a replacement fee. We're like onshore recruiters, right? Like onshore recruiters.
You might be onto something.
Hang on a second.
I was chatting to a medical recruitment company just yesterday. And, I'd asked him if he'd ever considered it or thought about it. And he said, mate, look, I'm going to stop you there. It's not going to work. Everything that we do is, too important. We're dealing with doctors and I can't have remote professionals in the Philippines working in my team. And I was just like, okay, cool. Do you mind if I ask you something? And I said, do you use a CRM? Yep. Do you require, qualifications and documents to be, obtained from the doctors or the nurses and then to be uploaded, into the CRM? And he's like, yeah, of course we do. We need compliance. And I was like, okay, perfect. So, task audit, that is potentially something that we could look at getting your consultants. How long does it take them? 15 minutes, 30 minutes back and forward. We can get your consultant 30 minutes of time back just by getting a remote professional to do this one thing for him, which means that he can go out and spend, that's like 10% of your day. You're getting 10% of your day back so that you can go and find another client, or, you can provide a better service to your existing client and potentially, bed yourself deeper, make more placements within, your existing or, more clients.
Yeah, I love that story because that's so true. What was his response?
Oh, actually, you're right.
Call
me next week. That's exactly what he said.
Cool. Because there's two things, there's two questions that I've got from just this conversation.
Yeah.
The first is around how to make the RPs have more meaningful work and get better engagement from them, which is something that seems like Wingman does really, really well. I mean, I was looking at some of Sam's stories before I had to put the phone down and thought, geez, I wish I was there. So there's that we'll probably dig into that I think is probably pretty beneficial. But then the second thing is how does it work mechanically? Like the tasks and duties, what are the 3 key activities or tasks that an RP can do that can really get a recruiter's time back?
I think that the activities depends on what's important to the recruiter as well. So for what I've found out speaking to so many more recruiters now is what works well in our business doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work well in another business because they've got different priorities. For us, it's them working hand in hand with each individual recruiter. So if we've got Kurt that's looking after the north side and then Kaz, who's his RP, supporting him, Kaz does all the candidate attraction generation. She'll speak to clients, she'll book in meetings, she'll organise medicals. That way Kurt can really focus on doing new business development, or he can do further account management to give that better service. But speaking to other recruiters, the thing that they're falling over might be the compliance aspect. It could be the administrative tasks. It could be the fact that they don't have enough time to do lead generation, which is obviously an important part of getting new deals. So that's probably what I found out is every recruitment business is a little bit different, and that's why that Recruitment Academy is so awesome, because it gives that RP experience in the recruitment agency that they're about to go into and what works well for them.
Well, I've got more questions now because I find it really fascinating how you guys put RPs into your business. KPIs, how do you manage their performance? Who does that?
We have daily huddles every single morning, which is where we sort of discuss wins from yesterday, priorities for day, challenges, what our outcomes need to be by the end of the day. I guess from the H people way, one KPI would be, it's not uncommon for our consultants to have 20 to 30 open roles at any one time, which, as you can appreciate, is quite stressful, makes the chest quite tight sometimes. But knowing that you have a remote professional that, some days, we might be so busy that our consultants might do, 2 to 5 BD calls and then they're sourcing and our RPs are sourcing. But I guess a KPI for, one of the key KPIs for our remote professional resources would be interviews every afternoon.
5 booked interviews every single day with a minimum of 3 attended. Obviously, there's things that do come up where a candidate might not be available for an interview, but all of the RPs need to have 3 interviews per day as a minimum. It's not uncommon for Joanne to book 8 to 10 interviews a day for Josh.
Yeah.
Another one of the KPIs that we run with, they need to connect with a minimum of 30 connected unique calls per day. So that means that they're connecting with an additional 30 candidates. Sometimes they're connecting with clients as well, but unique 30 calls per day. In terms of call numbers, Joanne's probably the biggest in our space, but I've seen her hit 80, 90, 100 calls a day.
What? Honestly, unbelievable. And some of those calls, we never, ever want to let our service drop. And that's to both candidates and clients. So one KPI that the remote professionals do is that they're building relationships with these candidates. They're the first person that's spoken to them. They've set up the interview with the consultant. They've sent them their details. They make sure they're okay for the first day. And the KPI is that they speak to every single candidate after they finish work on their first day and ask them how their day was and if they enjoyed the job and if they want to go back tomorrow. And so, some recruiters just, oh, awesome, man, and you never hear from them again. But, we want to make sure that the candidate wants to stay in that job long term. A big part of our service is, if the candidate doesn't like the job, we're going to pick up on that first call and they're going to say to us, hey, mate, look, it was all right. I can't see myself working here long term. Have you got anything else? What, Jory and I have instilled into our team is do not waste our clients' time training a candidate that is not going to stick around. You know what I mean? So those aftercare calls at the end of every first day, we do it in the the blue collar and the permanent space, but they are crucial. And we have remote professionals make them phone calls and develop relationships with our candidates.
Where do they call from?
So we use a CRM called Loxo, and everyone in our business has a soft phone number.
Like a VoIP.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, so essentially we've got our CRM and we can call directly from our laptop, and it doesn't matter. I actually got stuck.
Is it an Aussie mobile number?
I got stuck in the UK during COVID for 4.5 months. So I used to work from 11 p.m. to 9 a.m. every single day until I could actually get a flight back to Australia. No one knew I was there. No one knew I was in England. At all. Our remote professionals call from, and we don't hide the fact that they're Philippine. No one's going to answer a number if it says +63. So that's why we use an Australian CRM with Australian mobile numbers. And, any of our candidates and clients can call our remote professionals on an Australian mobile number, and their laptop rings in the Philippines, and it's just like you're ringing a mobile.
Yeah, interesting. Even just over in the Philippines last week on the retreat, doing calls from the laptop there, and it's coming out from an Australian phone number, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So some pretty cool spots. I was taking some BD calls, that's for sure.
Yeah, Boracay, baby. We need to talk about the retreat.
What about like their accent? Do they have a thick accent? Are they okay with English?
So I've got a Filipino receptionist for my real estate business. His name's Richard.
Yes.
He used to sell penny stocks on Wall Street.
He didn't.
Wow.
Trained himself to have an American accent. And then he became the head of customer care for Amex and used to look after the hyper wealthy when they'd have issues with their Amex. So when I heard that story, I was like, how does he not answer tenant calls? He's been our receptionist for the last 2 years, answers about 80 calls a day, record every single call. Best reception I've ever had. If he was in Australia, we'd hire him tomorrow. He's in the Philippines. So you can get them at the end of the day, they're from the Philippines, but they've got this American twang to their accent.
Yeah.
If they speak really good English and they know the answer, it doesn't matter that they've got some sort of accent, as long as they're knowledgeable in what they're talking about. We haven't had an issue with it at all. Never had a complaint. We get people come to our office saying we want to speak to Richard. Someone came to our office with a gift for Richard. So yeah, it's all mindset.
It is. It's a limiting belief. There's no. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They speak better English than probably half the people in Australia.
Yeah, and they all listen to American TV.
Friends, they're obsessed.
Yeah.
So's my wife though.
Yeah, that's super fascinating. So, so we've spoken about some of the kind of the myths or the concerns that probably many recruiters might have, or some misinterpretations on what that's like. How do you feel like it's changed your business though? Like, I don't know if this is going to be too personal, Jonny, but now that you've got a Filipino that's doing a great job answering the phone, like, what's the cost difference between hiring someone at his caliber in the office versus hiring someone at his caliber in the Philippines?
Yeah, so the average wage is around $30,000, including the Wingman fees, is about $30,000 annually.
Yeah.
That includes all setup and everything as well, right? So
does that include the training that goes into?
Correct. Yeah, so you're getting a full-time staff member for $30,000. Because my business is at a certain size, it also includes not paying payroll tax, which stings as well. So in Australia, I reckon that for a receptionist in Australia, you might be paying $80,000 plus super, plus desk space, plus everything else. So it probably works out. I reckon their wage plus 20% to actually have them in your office. So 110 grand.
Yeah.
So I reckon there's about a 1-to-4 ratio. You could have 4 staff in the Philippines to 1 in Australia.
That's wild.
And everyone wants to work from home these days as well, don't they?
Especially in recruitment. The big one in recruitment, like recruiters demand high wages and
Well, to be totally fair, most recruiters are remote professionals themselves, even if they live in Australia. Like, how many recruiters are physically going out and meeting their clients and physically meeting their candidates, mate? Everything's online.
We are a H people, baby. Clients-wise, yeah. We're active.
It's different for you boys being in blue-collar labour hire. Like you've got to be boots on the ground.
Yeah.
But for the other 60, 70% of the industry where I know for Vendito, I think my girls have only just started doing client appointments for the first time in 4 years. But
especially
all
when
of
you're recruiting interstate as well, that's all done remotely, isn't it? When you're based in one state, like a lot of our permanent placements, come from a number of companies that are national, and I'll get a phone call from the transport manager, and he'll say, "Sammy boy, need a wharf allocator over in Perth sorted out," all remote.
Yeah, you could be in the Philippines filling that role for him,
mate. I probably will be living in the Philippines for the winter of Brisbane soon.
Yeah. So I've shared that I've used remote people in my agency Vendito for a while, and maybe this might colour in some sort of inspiration or context on some of the things that a remote professional can do in your business from an outcome standpoint. So we've got a remote professional, Colin. He is honestly the backbone of Vendito. I'm pretty sure my whole team would wig out major if he ever left us. He's been with me 7 years, and some of what the day looks like for a remote professional. So we have our kind of KPIs almost is 10 targeted prospect BD emails every single day. Then throughout the day, source 30 to 40 candidates for an open job in the CRM. Then at the end of the day, the consultants tag the two best recruiters the two best candidates that they've spoken to for the day, and he has to reverse market them to 10 companies every single day. So essentially what this does is you've got someone who can do all of this administrative work. You guys are smiling.
Yeah.
What do you reckon?
Just getting some new ideas.
Yeah. So essentially what we do there is the 10 BD emails prospecting, shortlist the candidates for the recruiter just to wake up in the morning and pump phones, and then reverse market those actual candidates to 10 competing companies that they work at. And then all of a sudden you've got another 30 BD emails going out, and it's just a machine.
And that's exactly what I was sort of getting at before, is like the way that our business operates completely different to how Vendito operates, and doing this recruitment academy with the RP so that they know what to expect when they're coming into their new business. Just sets them up for success. And hearing some of the stories about the Vendito, I'm sort of getting some new ideas for some of our teams. So I'm sorry, guys.
Well, there's a couple of extra tasks we can add on this task list.
A number of our RPs, like when we are in a mad growth phase, and we don't have enough jobs on, we do target our remote professionals to do ad chasing in the specific geographical location that they are partnered up with. So they'll essentially just go on Seek, screen through Seek and find private companies that are posting. Then they'll scrape the information off of LinkedIn or from another platform, put them in the CRM, send them personalized email, sometimes even make a phone call to make that personalized touched, and then put them in an automated outreach that essentially touches them every 3 days and says, "Did you get my email? How are you going with your recruit? Have you hired anyone yet?" More often, in the blue collar space, they've probably had 16 no-shows, and someone's probably stolen the company car, and number of things, and we get so many discovery meetings from that outbound prospecting that takes a remote professional 1 to 2 hours of a morning to do for us.
I know you're probably going to be a little bit biased, all right, but what's the difference between Wingman recruitment specifically for remote people and then finding one of the other 1,000 remote people companies to go and engage with?
Sam and I were fortunate to go to the Philippines earlier in May this year, and that was a transformative experience to meet our team for the first time. Being fortunate enough to go with Jonny and Wingman, and getting invited on that Wingman retreat, and seeing how they've integrated their RPs with hundreds of businesses, and then to get to Laguna and see about 100 real estate companies meet their RPs sometimes for the first time, and see the tears in both the Australian and the RP's eyes was awesome. And to sit back from afar, because Sam and I were very fortunate that we got to do this. We were there with Louis, but I really sat back and really watched and looked, and how happy everyone was. It was a big collective family. The Wingman Games, which was probably my favorite part of the whole trip, the retreat at Laguna. Boracay was awesome, but I think the Wingman Games is great because it wasn't RP, it wasn't Australian client, it was just one team. And I had a post go out the other day and it was 2 nations in one team, and that's what I saw. I don't see any other, let's call it a VA company or an outsource company, an offshore company that does this at all. But Wingman does, and that's why it's special.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, most people kind of treat them differently.
Yep.
Second.
Yeah.
They're not. They're the same.
Why do you treat them differently, Johnny?
Because they're real people. When you get to know their story, they're human beings. The culture over there, they're very loyal. They're extremely family orientated. Like the culture, the way they live. When you first go to the Philippines, you go, how do they live like this? But then after a while, you start to go, this is how everyone should live. Like, you know, on a Friday night, they'll sit with their family singing karaoke till 2 a.m. and that's their dream night.
Yeah.
And they're so appreciative of the little things. So, I mean, they've transformed my life. They've transformed my business. And, you know, I want to give back. And then, you know, to answer your question around the difference is obviously that's a huge part of our DNA. But then there's also no company that has grown like you guys have in the recruitment space who's now helping others. So, you know, other recruitment agencies are getting your IP free of charge. And it's, you know, I was thinking about it's like built by recruiters for recruiters. And I think same as Wingman in the real estate space, we're a real estate company. We get the game. We know what the offshore need to do and we know what they need to be able to do for other agencies. And I think being a specialized, having the manpower of Wingman, but specialized in recruitment, that's where the magic's going to be. And that's why we've had so much success together so far.
Love that. So I want to leave the audience with some actionable insights. If someone likes the idea of offshoring, they're not sure where to start, what do they do next?
Yeah, they can hit us up on LinkedIn. It's probably the easiest option. There's heaps of content around either Wingman Recruitment, Wingman Group, Sam and I. You could check out our pages if you're interested. That would probably be the first actionable step. Check out some of the vlogs that will be coming out as well, what the actual trip is like. And then you'll start to see how it can really transform your business for sure.
All right, so Wingman Recruitment on LinkedIn, H people, everyone knows H people, so that'll be nice and easy. Was there some sort of checklist of like tasks? Just like, let's say, I'm just going to play devil's advocate. I'm not ready to reach out to you boys right now. I don't know what I'm doing. I just like the idea of offshoring. Yeah. What's maybe a less committed way that they can start to get their mind ticking along for offshoring? Yeah,
well, we do have a task list that essentially what some of our team do, and it's not an exhaustive task. I think it's about sort of 40 action points. I'm sure we'll be able to clip a link to the bottom of the episode, whether that's on Spotify or YouTube, so you could check that out. And we can also sort of link that into our Wingman Recruitment page as well, sort of see what that's all about too.
I love that. I'm really excited about Wingman Recruitment because especially seeing Jonny and the absolute crazy success that he's had, and it seems like just the key differentiator is you treat the remote people like humans. So you must be a good human yourself. So it's nice working with good humans. You've really focused your niche. The training for 3 months before they go into a business, that's pretty crazy.
That's a commitment, yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So there's a lot of infrastructure behind making these RPs work on day one. It's not like you're just putting someone in the role for the first time and going, hopefully this works out. You're spending your resources, your time, your IP up front to try and get them job ready so they can hit the ground running and have a higher success rate, which is really, really cool and fascinating. So congrats, boys. I love that. And so if anyone wants to, can we do some sort of discount plug for Confessions? Like if they come through Confessions and they reach out to Wingman Recruitment, can they have some sort of discount? Oh, sorry to put you on the spot, boys.
This is an expensive podcast.
I suppose full transparency at the moment, it is the onboarding fees is $2,000 to initially sign up. Anyone that does mention the Confessions, will drop it to that $1,000 for initial sign up. And then obviously ongoing from there.
Awesome. So save $1,000 just by listening to Confessions.
50% off.
You're welcome. Cool. Well, it's been a good episode, boys. I appreciate you sharing more insights around remote professionals and how it can elevate your business. Jonny, it's always good seeing you, mate.
You too. Thanks for the opportunity.
Awesome.
Love it.
Thanks, Blake.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, BT.
Yeah.